Alana Jaylo.
Yes.
I thought you were going to take out the trash before we did this.
No, I said later.
Good.
But not right now.
We had a fun morning, babes.
Certainly.
You made me some hot chocolate. You had some yourself. I shared with you my thoughts on the prison system. I don't know if you want to go into it here, but suffice it to say, there may be a few issues where I lean a little bit more to the right than you do.
No.
As far as criminal justice.
I think it's pretty extreme. I mean, even as conservative as I am, I think that's even extreme for me.
Do we want to get into it here or no? I could go either way. We could talk about it.
Why don't we talk about it later?
Okay.
I think it's pretty sick. I really don't think a conservative, I don't even think an ultra conservative person would even want that. I think it's too extreme.
Yeah. See, I think in some ways I am liberal, but there are these weird issues where I go hardcore conservative.
Okay.
It's not on social things like.
I will say that I think castration is a suitable punishment for said criminals.
Sexual offenders.
We will get into that in a little bit. I don't think that feeding them to lions is the best answer because either I don't even think the death penalty is, but I think that they need to be isolated.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna get into it now since you said my position.
No, okay. Anyway, I don't want to get into it now. But
okay.
I will expand on how I think about this
later on.
Yeah, we will both expand.
But it was a fun topic, I thought.
Albeit very sick.
Uh-oh.
And sadistic.
Oh.
Yes.
The hot chocolate was good though, babes.
Thank you.
Yes, you cleaned up the kitchen a little bit.
A little bit, yes.
And we discussed some of the movies we watched last night.
Yes, we certainly did.
Should we get into that first?
Yes, we should.
Do you want me to give a synopsis of From Dusk Till Dawn?
Yes.
Okay. First, let me talk about my history with the movie. I am a big Quentin Tarantino fan, but back when this movie was released, I was even more obsessed with his work. I loved Pulp Fiction. I thought he was a great guest on talk shows because he would really go into the history of film. And you know that that's something I like to pontificate about. Mm. And I saw that he did a new film with Robert Rodriguez directing that Quentin Tarantino had written the screenplay for. Harvey Keitel was in it, who I loved from playing the wolf in Pulp Fiction and also playing Mickey Cohen in Bugsy, which is an underrated movie. And George Clooney was in it. I was excited to see this movie. The day it comes out, I skip school.
Of course.
And I make my mom take me to go and see this movie at Lloyd's Center. I'm assuming they still have this, but on the third floor, next to their food cart, they have some movie theaters. We go up to buy the tickets. Guy says he can't sell them to us. They go and get the manager who lets us in because my mom and I don't look alike.
That was kind of a funny story.
We go in and see this movie, and I had high expectations, but this film blew those away. It was such an incredible film, in my opinion. And it's one of those movies I've watched many, many, many times throughout the years. I've shown it to people, friends, family, and it's very divisive. So that's a little bit of my history. And I will say that the last time I saw this, before last night, was on New Year's Eve going into New Year's Day, 2001. Mm-hmm. And I remember that day I had gotten into an argument with my mom and also a conflict with one of my friends. So it was a tense day.
Wow.
I went, coincidentally enough, to Lloyd Center to buy the new Jay-Z album, which is basically his Unplugged album that he did with MTV. It was his follow-up, or I guess his release right after the Blueprint. Mm-hmm. I remember being disappointed.
Oh, really?
Because it had so many songs from that album.
Oh, okay.
And I would have liked him to do a few more obscure tunes. Uh-huh. So that was the environment the last time I saw this picture. Mm-hmm. And now, almost 20 years later, I got to revisit it with you. Mm-hmm. Let's get into the film. It starts off, this cop drives up to a convenience store in Texas. He goes inside, chats with the clerk a little bit, and he says he has to use the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom. Richie and Seth Gecko, who are played by Quentin Tarantino and George Clooney, come over to the clerk. They were hiding in the back of the store, and they basically Clooney says, as Seth Gecko, what were you trying to do? You got to get that cop out of here. And Richie whispers in his ear that he was trying to motion to the cop that something was up.
Oh.
Seth says, okay, let's be cool. And if we see anything weird, we're going to go crazy in here.
Uh-huh.
They have some hostages. They move away.
And they're 2 women, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The cop comes out of the bathroom and Richie shoots him in the head. Says that the clerk was trying to mouth the words, help us, to the officer. Then a gunfight ensues. The hostages escape. Richie and Seth kill the clerk.
Somebody shoots Seth on his hand, right?
Yes, that was the clerk before he died.
Yeah.
They leave. Get the opening music. End up in the hotel room with Richie and Seth. They take out their hostage, Gloria, and bring her into the hotel. And we learn that they robbed a bank after Richie broke Seth out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get into Mexico that night and meet up with this man, Carlos. They're going to pay him 30% of their take from the bank robbery in exchange for protection in Mexico.
Right.
Seth leaves. Richie is very creepy and basically kills the hostage. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
without giving anything away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seth comes back, sees what Richie did, freaks out a little bit on him. There is also a family that we first meet at this diner. And the father is Harvey Keitel, who plays Jacob. Juliette Lewis, who plays Kate. And I forgot the actor's name.
Who plays Scott.
Yeah, but he's good in it too.
Yeah.
And, Kate and Scott are basically teenagers. Scott goes to the bathroom and we find out that Jacob used to be a minister, I believe. Mm-hmm. But he's lost sort of his love for God. He still believes in Jesus, but he doesn't have love for Jesus.
He seems very jaded.
Mm-hmm. They go back to the hotel room. Richie and Seth need to get out of town. Richie knocks on the door of Jacob. He answers the door, and him and Seth come in, take the family hostage, take their RV, and drive into Mexico.
And Seth threatens that if you don't do what we say, then your
family's going to die.
Your whole family's going to die, and you're going to die.
Yes. When we're driving into Mexico, there's a few interesting things. I don't want to give everything away.
Yeah.
But Seth starts having this conversation with Jacob, and we find out that Jacob's wife died one night when she was driving home because the brakes in the car gave out.
And it was raining.
Yes. She crashed and it took her about 6 hours to pass away.
Terrible way to go.
And that's what led to his loss in faith.
Yeah, it's a terrible way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. They get into Mexico. There's some commotion. At one point, George Clooney knocks out Quentin Tarantino. Mm-hmm. And I love the scene after they're in Mexico when he wakes him up and Richie's like, what happened, man?
What happened?
And Seth responds with, you were saying something about your hand hurting?
And then you fell or something. I think you hit something with your hand. And
yes.
It was like some weird story that didn't happen.
Well, the other thing I want to say, when they're in the RV, but before they get to Mexico, actually, when they go into the hotel room, Juliette Lewis was in the bathroom and she steps out. She turns to Richie and says something that we don't have to repeat here.
But we also, can I say this at least?
Go ahead.
That this was all in his head.
Yes, the part
and I didn't even realize it.
What she said to him.
Yeah.
And it comes up later in the movie when they're in the RV. Quentin Tarantino looks at Kate and says, did you want me to do that thing you said in the
if
hotel room?
He's like, what did I say? And he's like, that thing that you said in the room. Like, what did I say? And he's like, that. And then
when you asked me to eat your and then George Clooney interrupts with, Richie, I told you to watch those kids, not talk to them.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought that was great.
That was yeah.
Okay, so they're in Mexico. They get to this bar called the Titty Twister, and Cheech Marin is kind of like this hype man who's outside of the bar encouraging people to come in. Mm-hmm. George Clooney thinks he's a little bit of a jerk, so he punches him a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Quentin Tarantino then proceeds to kick him.
Yep.
We go inside. It's a rowdy place. It's only meant for truckers.
And bikers.
Right, but Harvey Keitel vouches for Richie and Seth. Mm-hmm. Sit down, start drinking. There's a show, meaning a band.
There's a band, and then there's this woman with a snake.
Yes.
On her.
Cheech Marin comes into the bar with some friends of his, tells a story, and somebody stabs Richie in his messed up hand.
Yeah.
They start shooting, and that's when things get a little bit cray. Mm-hmm. We find out this bar is inhabited by vampires.
Yep.
They start attacking people. Richie gets hurt. George Clooney almost dies. Selma Hayek jumps on him at one point. And
he kills her.
Yeah, she threatens to make him a slave, and he's like, sorry, I already have a wife. Made me laugh as a kid.
Bad joke.
I like dad jokes like that.
It's not a dad joke. I said it's a bad joke.
Oh, I know you said bad joke, but I think of that as a dad joke. Anyways, the fight ensues. A lot of people die. They meet up with these two people. One of them is called Sex Machine. And they help them basically fight the vampires until Sex Machine turns.
That's an odd name, but
yes.
Okay. Yes.
They kill a lot of them, but there are bats outside. And we know bats turn into vampires.
Yes, they do.
They eventually break inside the bar. Kate, Scott, and Seth make it to this back room. Harvey Keitel is hiding under the bar. Eventually, he takes two guns and he fashions them to be like a cross.
And they have and they take all the ammunition that was left over. It looks like, right?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
He gets to where the kids and Seth are, enters the room, and we find out that Jacob was bitten by a vampire.
Yep.
We should say that earlier in the movie, there was a discussion about faith. And, Jacob had lost his faith in God in a way. But Seth kind of reminds him, hey, listen, we need you here to be a mean servant of God. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I like when Harvey Keitel says that. I'm a mean servant of God. You did think that was funny.
That was, that was one of the funny things that was kind of funny. Yeah.
Okay. So we're in the room. Jacob's been bitten. He tells everybody this, but he says, I have about maybe 45 minutes to an hour before I become a lapdog of Satan.
Yeah.
And in that time, I'm going to help you guys kill the vampires. Mm-hmm.
But he makes his family promise. He makes his family promise that when he turns into a vampire to kill him. Yeah.
So what happens is, because this is a trucker bar and they've been killing people for years, they have a lot of supplies in this room. So they each get guns. Yep. Scott has a squirt gun, but because Jacob is a minister, he blesses it and makes it into holy water. And right before Seth opens the door, he makes him promise and he holds a gun to his head. He gives Kate till the count of 5. He gives Scott till the count of 3. And I'm trying very hard not to quote lines from this movie because I know you don't like it when I do it.
It's kind of distracting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I know this because I've been known, when I was younger, I used to quote stuff from movies that I liked, and I'm like, that's really, actually, when I got older, I'm thinking, that's really distracting. I should really stop that. And I haven't done it for a long time.
Yeah, but this movie, I could quote it all day. I'll try to do this. When he's counting down to Scott, he's like 2.5. Scott's like, it's not, you don't believe in suicide. And Harvey Keitel responds with, it's not suicide if you're already dead. And then he promises that he killed his dad. So they go out, fight the vampires. Eventually, Jacob turns and bites Scott. Scott kills him, but all these other vampires come upon him, start tearing him apart. He begs Kate to shoot him. She does. By now, the sun is starting to come out, and they realize to shoot holes into the wall so the sun will come in and it'll kill them. At this moment, we hear, "Hello, I'm looking for my friend Seth."
In the crowd.
Outside the door.
Outside the door, I'm sorry.
Carlos, his friend, is also played by Cheech Marin. They run to the door, open it, the vampires explode along with the bar. And we get this beautiful exchange from Carlos along with Seth, where they're talking about the bar, and they start negotiating on how much it'll cost for his stay in El Rey. I think the place
25%. I think they
25% instead of 30%.
Right.
Something like that.
So they both agree on 25%. I think they shake on it.
Yes. He gets the car, gives some money to Kate. She asks if she could go with him. He tells her no. He drives away. And we just see Kate looking around and headed back to the RV. And that's where the movie ends. I love this movie. It holds a special place in my heart. But we do not agree on this film at all.
No, this is one of those films where we absolutely don't agree on it. There's so many things I didn't like about it.
Wow. Go ahead, because I've said my piece. Now you should say yours.
I gave this, and I know you were surprised yesterday when I gave the score, and you were even more surprised that you didn't give it a lower. I didn't give it a lower score.
To me, it's borderline 10. It's either 9.5 or 10.
I gave it a 6.5.
Yeah,
and I'll explain why I gave it a 6.5. I felt that it wasn't just violent. And I wasn't able to see the violence. Thank goodness I wasn't able to see the violence. I think it's probably really gory.
Violence is very over the top.
Really gory and yeah, all that. I could not relate to any of the characters. I will admit that the actors who played the characters were really good, including George Clooney, who I thought was a real jerk in this movie. I also thought that there was a lot of blasphemous things going on. I thought that there was a mockery of Christianity in there, and that was really one of the reasons why I did not like it. A mockery mostly from Seth, I think, and partly from Jacob, I think. I don't know. And then there's also like these, I think that a lot of religious movies, maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but some religious movies will take things like, I would imagine that they were like myths and legends about, crosses warding off vampires, if they were real, and blessing any kind of water that would make it holy water. That's another myth. I didn't really like the Catholic tones of it. I just did not. I just saw some problems with this movie. I didn't like it at all. I was just hoping that Seth was going to be killed off. I don't know. I was. I was just like, why can't I just kill this guy off? I don't like him. But that attests to the fact that George Clooney was very good as a villain, and I can't really get mad at that too much because he really was good in this movie. Despite the fact that I did not like his character. Yeah. So not a good grade for me, but that's my opinion, and unfortunately this is one of the movies where it was a miss for me.
I was assuming you were either going to give this movie a 1 or was going to be like me where it was a borderline 10. I did not expect a 6.5.
Well, the reason why I didn't give it an even lower score than this, because you said that the way that it looked, right?
Yes.
Because you said the artistic factor was that it actually looked really, really good. Yeah. How they made it look.
To me,
it really looked,
as a blind guy.
Yeah, it really looked good, and I couldn't give it a bad score because of it. I couldn't give that a bad score because of the artistic part of it.
I think you said some stuff I agree with, and also a few things I disagree with.
Okay.
You are right. Seth makes a complete mockery out of religion in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would make the argument that that's why I felt like him and Harvey Keitel are so good together in this film, because they're yin and yang. He makes a mockery out of God and religion, but Jacob doesn't. He centers it to me. I've told you this before. Because I know a lot of people who are divisive on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I have sold this movie to Christians, and I've always thought of it like Jacob is maybe an example of why Christianity works, and not making a mockery out of it. So I'm going to give you my argument, and I want you to push back if you feel necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob is questioning his faith. He never doesn't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
What he questions is how much he loves Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he needs a non-believer like Jacob also in the situation of where he's fighting for the lives of his family to show him how much he needs God in his life. And while he only accepts God as somebody who he loves and sees as his Lord and Savior in the last couple of hours of his existence, it helps him fight against evil in those final hours.
Mm.
And I think that Jacob, because he's a man of God, he's always trying to do the right thing throughout the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can make the argument, and I know you have and other people have as well, that he helps Seth a little bit too much.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going to go with this.
But my counter argument to that would be he sees Seth, and this might be subconscious, but as somebody who has potential and who could maybe be saved if he has a mentor in his life.
Right.
And Harvey Keitel knows that he's going to lose an opportunity if he just lets Seth go.
Right.
And become a criminal.
Right.
So he's helping him because he thinks
Right.
he thinks he can save him at the end. Now, he's not successful in that.
No.
But I believe that that's what his character is thinking.
Okay. Okay, so I will give you credit. I give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
I understand why you may think that.
Okay.
I do understand where you're coming from as a non-believer. I get it. You know, I understand where you're coming from, but I have to push back because
Go ahead.
Being a very devout believer, I see this as not only was Jacob helping Seth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was also partaking in what he was doing. I mean, he may not have been drinking, but he put himself in that situation where he was in a bar. There's all these things going on. There's evil going on around him. I understand that he was very confused. I don't know. I just thought, I don't know. I kind of thought that in some ways he was also mocking religion.
Oh, that's interesting.
I do. I mean, did you ever get the sense from your Christian friends who saw it with you, or saw it without you, that they thought the same way I did?
I'm assuming they did. It's been so many years. What I will say is they've said that the movie in general is like an indictment on religion, which I don't believe at all. But that is your opinion.
Yeah.
What I will say is if you just knew Jacob from the scene in the diner,
yeah,
I could see how you would get that. That you could think that he's just mocking religion.
Absolutely.
But
I just thought that was a very very mocking and blasphemous scene, and I'm just like,
But I'm talking about the scene early on in the diner.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Exactly what I mean.
But you get to know him throughout the course of this film. And you get to see that he's a decent man who went through a tragedy and who now has some questions about what to believe.
Now, I will say this, that I'm not saying that he did not redeem himself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I think overall, I just don't know. I mean, Seth, of course, did show more of a mockery towards Jacob's faith.
Oh, absolutely, he did.
But I also think that Jacob, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that he didn't die a changed man, but I still did not relate to his character. I didn't.
I will tell you this. This film to me would not work without Jacob. At all.
It may not have, yeah.
It works so well because they play off each other great in this movie. I love George Clooney's chemistry with Harvey Keitel.
I will say that you really had to feel for Kate at the end because I didn't, even if I didn't relate to Kate, I mean, she had to kill her brother. Her dad, her brother had to kill her dad because they were both vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Seth had to kill Richie. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct.
Seth had to kill Richie. Now she's left alone with Seth. She doesn't know what to do now because the RV that she was in with her family is now empty.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I thought that she was attracted to Seth, but I was glad that they didn't go that route.
I am too. It would have cheapened the movie.
I think it would have, and I'm glad that they didn't go that route. Because I thought that maybe she was attracted to Seth, but then you made a point about, well, she's lonely and she, now it's the two of them, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just the two of them and Carlos.
And Carlos, as we know, has a horrible history of picking bars.
Exactly.
So we don't necessarily want to trust him on much.
No, but the point being is that it's just the two of them now.
Yes.
And they suffered tragedy together. And now they have to pick up the pieces from the tragedies that they both recently witnessed and committed because they had to. Otherwise, they would have been dead. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm very glad that Seth left Kate.
As am I. I am glad that he left Kate and he just said, go home. Start a new life. You don't need... It sounded to me like he was basically saying... You don't need to be around me. I'm not good. I have my own life. Just go home and take care of yourself.
What do you think of Quentin Tarantino in this movie? Because I will tell you, I am a fan of his as a director and writer.
Yes.
I think overall he does fantasy movies for cynical people. Uh-huh. Right? And that's my opinion. And after watching this movie, maybe you could understand why.
Cynical in general?
Yes, I think he does fantasy movies for cynical adults.
Okay.
That's my take on it. But I've never really liked him as an actor. I've always thought that he's taken me out of the film, especially his performance in Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
He's not good in that at all.
Really?
This movie is the exception to the rule.
I thought he was very good.
I thought he was very good in this movie.
I thought he was very good. I wasn't sure what to think of him in the beginning because I thought, oh, this guy is not very smart. Mm-hmm. But he's also very crazy, which I didn't realize that until you explained to me what was in his head.
Yeah.
He's nuts. He's nuts. And something could just completely set him off. But despite the fact that I did not like his character, I thought he was very good.
Nice.
Yeah. What was that one movie that we watched where he's on the answering machine? He's like, you have no more messages.
Jackie Brown.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
My favorite. This is my second favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Jackie Brown is my first.
And he directed that one.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons I like Jackie Brown is in a lot of ways it's his least Tarantino movie. Because it's the only film that he's directed that he didn't write himself. He wrote the adaptation, but it's based on an Elmore Leonard book. And he doesn't really act in the movie, besides for the answering scene.
Yeah, because I didn't even recognize his voice.
Yeah.
Because all I could hear was, you have no more messages.
It's very easy to miss him in that movie.
Yeah, it is.
Which I think works to the film's benefit.
But you've heard his voice more than once, so you were able to pick it out.
Absolutely. No, I grew up watching his interviews and seeing his films.
Okay.
I think in some ways that plays into how much I like Pulp Fiction is because I've seen him do so much bad acting that it was a complete shock to see him actually be good in a movie. Uh-huh. And he's really good in this movie. Okay. In my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. He definitely plays a crazy lunatic very well.
Well, now maybe we should move into some character analysis.
Okay.
What does Seth teach us about the importance of family?
Well, when push comes to shove, your family is all you have in this world. When everybody, when all your friends around you leave, the only ones you can count on is your family, unless your family disowns you or something, or is no longer speaking to you.
I guess maybe a question related to that is, what does Seth teach us about forgiveness? And I'm thinking specifically of the scene early on in the movie where he comes back with the food and sees what Richie did to Gloria.
Well, so I think of that scene, but I also think of the scene where he thought his brother was dead. And he had to kill his brother. Because remember when he's like, I know that I didn't treat you very well in life.
Yeah.
But I love you anyway. Right? It's like, I think he was asking Seth to forgive him for what he did. Because he wasn't the best brother. I mean, we both know that. He lived a life of crime. And Richie was there for the ride, but he was also committing the same crime. And it's interesting. It's like, does death have to bring someone to the point of asking someone to forgive them? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think about that. I don't know if I answered your question. It's hard to answer that.
I'm going to ask you a question that may be a little bit more difficult for you to answer.
Okay.
What does Jacob see in Seth?
I will agree with you on something.
Go ahead.
I think he does see a lost, wayward person that needs some stability and structure in his life. That needs to be shown a better path. And maybe you're right that Seth is that kind of person to Jacob. As much as I didn't like his character. So, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
What type of man is Jacob before meeting Seth? I have some thoughts on this too.
Okay.
I want you to go first.
I think he may have been very lost and confused about his own faith, and I also think he was obviously still grieving the loss of his wife. Doesn't know what to do as far as where to, how to start over with his kids, because it's only him and his kids now. And he just left the church that he was pastoring, and they're trying to find, he feels like he has failed, failed as far as being a pastor to the church that he was pastoring, and he was hoping that they would find someone that would be a better leader than he could, because right now he's emotionally broken.
I think we mostly agree there's a word when I think of Jacob that not a lot of people bring up, and that word is reliable. I see him as somebody, even though he's broken, he's the rock. If he says he's going to do something for somebody, he does it.
I would agree with you on
I
that.
get that feeling that he's one of these guys who, if he tells you he's going to help you at 3:00 in the morning, move.
He's not going to abandon you.
He's not going to abandon you at the last minute unless something comes up out that's out of his control.
I would agree with you on that, yes. He's like, he will try his best to help you if he can help you.
Yeah.
And he won't just abandon you just when it's convenient. He'll help you, and he'll help you till the end if he can. Yeah. I think you're right. I think he's very reliable.
He says something to Kate in the diner about, most parts of this movie I could quote. This part I'm a little bit more sketchy on. He explains to her that every man of faith, I don't care if you're a preacher, a minister, a rabbi, or a Buddhist monk, many times in your life you will look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I a fool for believing this? And I wondered, what did you think about that?
So I'm not going to say that no Christians have felt this way. I have not, but that doesn't mean that nobody has looked in the mirror and questioned their own faith, their own salvation. And so I'm not going to take that away from another Christian. Because Christians go through that. They go through times of confusion, like, where's my life going? What am I doing here? Why can't I find my purpose? Am I really a child of God, or am I just a lost person wandering aimlessly in this world? So for me to say that no Christians have thought that way would be wrong. I have not yet. I hope that never happens. But I understand that Christians do go through, what's the word? They go through a time of questioning. They go through a time of trying to understand what's going on with their own things. I can't find the word to describe it right now.
Let me see if I can put my own spin on this.
Okay.
We're seeing this through the eyes of a Christian man.
Mm-hmm.
I would make the argument, though, that everybody, regardless if they're a church or religious leader, should go through something like that several times in their life, where they ask themselves, am I a fool for believing what I believe in? Whether they're an atheist, whether they're Buddhist, I think it's good for people to question that, to have that come up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. And I think a lot of people have looked themselves in the mirror and asked themselves the same question. And there's nothing wrong with it.
But you haven't.
Not yet.
Okay.
I have not yet.
I do it very often.
I have not yet. I hope I never get to that point. I would imagine, though, if something really, really, really traumatic, and not just one thing, but several things, I would imagine that maybe it would bring me to the point of questioning my own faith. Because, and I've talked to somebody about that when I was in college, because something was going on with this woman, and I'm not going to mention her name. But I went to school with her. Something was going on with this woman and her husband at the time, and they as Christian parents were questioning their own faith too, and having their own thoughts about it, and trying to figure out what to do because their marriage was failing. You know, so I mean. So it happens. It really does. It happens. I think it's a good thing that stuff like that happens, because it makes you stronger. Right. Or it could be the opposite, where you, instead of questioning it, it toughens you up. When things hit you from both sides and you don't know where to go, your faith is even more strengthened. And you don't have, I think the word is doubt. Yes. You don't have doubts, but it strengthens you. So it could go either way. Yes. It could go either way. Does that answer your question? Yes, I think it does. Good. Of course, I'll re-listen to this in a week or two, and I'll be like, oh, I should have asked this. But for the time being, I think we got to go with where we are at. That's right. I want to know, you may not have the answers to this. In fact, something tells me you don't. But what was childhood like for Richie and Seth Gecko? Well, I don't know. It may have been a bad one. It may have been a normal one. It may have been that their parents tried to raise them as best as they could, but they decided to do their own thing when they got older, and maybe they fell into the wrong crowd, and they didn't know how to make a living for themselves with the jobs that you would normally get if you were not living a life of crime. But I don't know. I can't answer that question. They have made 2 prequels to this movie and a television show. 2 prequels? Yes. None of which had the involvement of Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez, I believe. Mm-hmm. So
I never bothered paying attention to that stuff. So it's possible it's covered there. But I assume that they had a very rough childhood. And that Seth, being the older brother, was hard on Richie, but meant to do the right thing. He just didn't know how.
He definitely didn't know how.
Mm-hmm.
He was very misguided, or maybe he, I don't know. Somebody must have misguided him.
I'm curious, babes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think this experience changes Seth?
I would like to think that because he has a second chance at freedom, albeit, Carlos doesn't have a really good history of bars, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You
don't want to go drinking with Carlos.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't know where you're going to end up. Yeah.
One place is just as good as another.
Exactly.
What were they, psychos or something? Psychos don't explode when sunlight hits them.
I had to laugh at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't want to end up in a bar with Carlos. But he has a second chance at freedom. Even if he is running away from the police.
Yes.
Maybe he'll think about, he doesn't really have anybody now because his only brother is gone. We don't know where his parents are. Now he's alone. So I would like to think that maybe he would think about where his life is going, because since he met Jacob and his family, maybe that may have planted some seeds, and he's thinking about what I would like to think that maybe he's thinking about what his life is going to be in the future.
I have a fantasy.
Okay.
That is realistically probably not going to happen.
Okay.
In this fantasy, Robert Rodriguez directs a follow-up to From Dusk Till Dawn. George Clooney agrees to star, and Quentin Tarantino writes the screenplay. And in this fantasy, Seth Gecko gets into a little bit more trouble and eventually turns his life around. And when we see him 30 years later, he is now a minister.
I doubt that would happen.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I think
that's why it's a fantasy.
He may not be a minister, but he might do something else. I would like to think that he would try to do something like helping people get out of trying to show people that robbing people and taking advantage of people isn't right. I don't know that he would be a minister.
I think it would be an interesting take, though.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean,
unlikely to
things have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, things have happened in real life that you wouldn't think this person would be doing.
That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, it could happen. I just don't know that it could happen to Seth. He might do something else.
Yeah. I want you to, if you can, talk about Seth's morality. We know that he doesn't believe in God, and that he kind of he does mock religious people in this movie.
He certainly does.
But is there a morality to him? I think there is.
The only thing that I can see that was moral, actually two things.
Yes.
Was that he asks, he basically tells Richie that he loves him. And I think he's trying to show remorse for how he treated him. And then also telling Kate to go back home. That's the only two things I can think of that he actually did that was good.
He also flips out on Richie when he discovers what he did to Gloria.
That is true. Because he basically said that, I was not about to do this. I didn't want you to do this. Why did you do this? Mm-hmm. Questioning Richie's sanity, like, wow, how could you do this? I wasn't planning to do this. So yeah, that was in some ways a good thing, even though Seth wasn't exactly innocent. Do
you think that there is help for Seth? It sounds like you do.
I do think there's help for Seth. Even
hope for him.
I mean, hope, and yeah, I do think there is hope for Seth. And I do think he could get help.
Yes.
I don't think he is beyond help.
I have a follow-up question about the scene with Richie and Seth after what happened to Gloria.
Okay.
If you remember, Richie says to Seth, after you left, she became a completely different person and started freaking out.
And he never explained what that was.
Right. And listen, from what I saw, it didn't look like that happens.
I don't believe that she became a different person.
I don't believe she became a different person. But what I want to know from you is Richie lying to Seth? Or does Seth believe that she became a different person? Because we know that things happen in his head a little bit differently based on what happens later with Juliette Lewis and him in the hotel room.
I really don't... I think Seth was... I think Richie was lying. I think Richie was lying because he doesn't even know what's going on in his own head, right?
Right.
And maybe he doesn't... Maybe it's not so much that he's lying... but that he actually thinks that whatever is going on in his head is true because he's that delusional.
See, that's what I think happened. I think
right?
that to the best of his abilities, he's telling the truth.
Yeah.
She didn't really freak out, but he's so nutty that he believes that she did.
Yeah, and I don't believe that Seth believed Richie when he said that.
No, he clearly did not.
He clearly didn't because he called him a nut.
Yep.
You know, and
he fights him. He pushes him to the wall.
Yeah, and Richie was upset because he called him a nut. But how, you know, that's true. I mean, it's been proven that it is really true. So I guess my answer would be, he thought that's what really happened with Gloria. I don't think he was lying. I just think he was delusional. So I guess I should backtrack on that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Where is Kate now?
Oh boy. I would hope that she's getting her life straightened out. Maybe she's going to school, or maybe she's trying to find a job and trying to pick up the pieces. And maybe she does question her faith, or maybe she is still faithful. I don't know. It's hard to say. I would hope that she gets her life straightened out after all this.
I know that you didn't really like this movie, but
no.
A question I would have for you, are you glad that you've at least seen it?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, because oftentimes you'll hear me talk about movies and quote them, and you won't have any reference for it, right? But now we don't have to have the discussion of should we watch From Dusk Till Dawn because you've already seen it, whether or not you like it or not.
I guess. I mean, I suppose, because I know you asked me that question yesterday, and I said, I suppose I'm glad I saw it. I mean, I know now what, you know, how to think about it, I guess.
It did surprise me a little bit that you said that you liked August Rush better from Dusk Till Dawn.
I think from an artistic point of view, yes, I did. I thought the music was great. I didn't really think much about the storyline because the person I was watching it with really liked the movie, so I wasn't even thinking about that.
August Rush, you mean?
Yes.
Yes,
I did.
Would you recommend From Dusk Till Dawn to anybody in your life?
I don't know that I would.
Besides for me, obviously.
I don't know.
And you don't have to recommend it to
I
me
don't
because
think
I
I
love
would.
it.
I think, you know, I would... If any of my Christian friends wanted to see something like that, I would say, like I've said with other movies, see it at your own discretion. That's what I said with the People versus Larry Flint.
Yes.
See it at your own discretion. Don't tell me that I didn't warn you, because you may not like it as much as I didn't like it. But see it at your own discretion.
But you enjoyed the People versus Larry Flint a lot more. Than
yeah. I mean, I would say see it at your own discretion. I wouldn't give it a 10, but I also wouldn't give it a 5. I would give it at least an 8.
You said 8.5 last night.
Did I?
Yes. With the People versus Larry Flint.
Yes, I would actually. 8.5. Nice. Yes, I would. because there was some. I mean, despite the spectacle that Larry Flint made in the courtroom, you kind of root for him after a while, because as much as I didn't like the character, you have to think about, well, if you don't like censorship, if you are for free speech, then you have to root for this guy.
Yeah. And you like the fact that he's pushing boundaries. I like it when people push buttons, even if it's the buttons I don't like to be pushed on. I mean, wearing an American flag as a diaper in a courtroom is nothing I would do. And
I'm glad you wouldn't do that.
No, it's also
really disrespectful.
Very disrespectful. But I like that there's somebody out there who's willing to do that and push the boundaries so I don't have to push as hard.
Right. Yeah.
I hate that he does it, but I like that he does it too. I admire that he does it. Is probably
that's yeah. I think I understand that. Yes.
I admire him even though I don't like him.
Right, and I could say that for this movie, I will say that I thought it was. I mean, it sounded like they took risk with this movie.
Yes.
And I admire the risk taking. As much as I didn't like the movie, I admire the risk taking because it was a risky move.
So, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that I like it as much as I do?
No.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
I am not surprised.
It makes sense to you.
Yes, it does make sense to
Nice.
To me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Natural Born Killers for a minute.
Okay, we have not seen that yet.
Right. Do you want to watch that tonight? What are your thoughts now that you've seen From Dusk Till Dawn?
I'm not sure because you said it was very violent. I don't know.
So we'll leave that as a to be continued, and tomorrow we'll report back on whether we watch that or Basketball Diaries.
I kind of wonder. Here's my thoughts on it right now.
Go ahead.
I kind of wonder if we should see it another time because of how violent this movie was. I don't know.
I'm cool with that. I do want to watch it with you eventually because I want to do an episode called Natural Born Jaylos.
Oh my goodness. Just so you can have an excuse to put Jaylo in the podcast.
Yes. So we'll
podcast name.
Yes, we'll revisit that subject tonight, but at some point we will get to Natural Born Killers. And I think that we need to get to it for a couple reasons. So there's the obvious, they have the connection between Juliette Lewis, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's in both movies. Quentin Tarantino wrote the script to both films, and he has very different opinions on Natural Born Killers and From Dusk Till Dawn.
Really?
He has said many times that he is not happy with the film version of Natural Born Killers, and he thinks it's a bastardization of his writing.
Really?
Yes.
Because he wrote that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And he wasn't happy with it?
He hated the movie.
Wow.
He hated the movie.
Okay.
Also, it has Woody Harrelson, who see People versus Larry Flint or my multiple references to Cheers to see how important he is in my existence. But also, it's an important film in the history of cinema.
Okay.
But it's also over-the-top violence. And I think you'll like Seth more than you like Mickey Knox.
Oh, really?
But
that really?
Well, we'll have to see.
Ugh.
We'll have to, but I like them both. I like Seth better. Though.
I'm just so. Do you kind of understand why I'm taking that kind of thinking about it? Well, I mean, we just saw a really violent movie last night.
Yes.
I don't know that we should have another one tonight. As much as
Yes.
I know that. Yeah, I will. I mean, I don't know. I'll think about it, but I'm not sure about.
And my substitute film, The Basketball Diaries, I think is a classic.
Yeah.
That not enough people discuss. So
I don't believe it's been I may have seen it. I just don't remember. I know I heard about it. Yes.
Great movie.
Mm-hmm.
But we will get to that when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
We watched another movie last night.
Yes.
Oh, first of all, one last thing about From Dusk Till Dawn. Is it the most violent Disney movie you've ever watched?
Well, I know that Disney owned it, but I don't even consider it a Disney movie.
Oh.
I don't. I mean, I know that Disney owned. Was it what
So it's a little bit complicated, but
I wouldn't consider it a Disney movie.
Yeah. Dimension Films released From Dusk Till Dawn, and Dimension Films was a offshoot of Miramax, which at the time was owned by Disney.
I'm sorry, I still wouldn't consider it a Disney movie.
Okay.
No.
I wish they would have aired this on the Disney Channel.
Oh.
Commercial free. What would you thought of that?
No. That's just sick. See, folks? See? Very sick sense of humor.
Oh my goodness. Now that we've discussed From Dusk Till Dawn, is there anything else you want to say before we move on about
it? No.
Okay. I feel we've covered it well.
I think we did. I think we exhausted all of our analyses on this.
I think it's a classic. You disagree. But that's fine because it is divisive.
It is. Okay.
All right.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you are willing to acknowledge the divisiveness of this movie.
Look, I acknowledge it because you're not the only one I know who hates it.
And it's good.
And I'm not the only one that I know who loves it. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, all things being equal, I would have loved it if after the movie you would have said, I think this is a brilliant movie. And I not only do I get why you love it, but I love it too. But you can't get everything you want in life.
You can't always
get what you want. Jaylo.
Yes.
We watched another movie called The Other Sister.
Yes.
And maybe you should talk about it a little bit.
So I wanted to show you this film because I thought Juliette Lewis was really good in this movie. And also her co-star Giovanni Ribisi. And Diane Keaton plays her mother, and she's very good in this one too. So Carla Tate is Juliette Lewis's character. It is implied that she has some learning disabilities. We don't actually know what disability it is, but she comes back from a school in Santa Barbara, California. So she lives in San Francisco with her family. And in the midst of that, so she comes home, and I think after she comes home, she has that flashback, right?
Yeah, she has a few.
She has a flashback of her throwing some tantrums at the dinner table. And, you know, she's not eating with a fork. She's clearly not able to understand it. And her mother is arguing for her to go to this school in Santa Barbara. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, right.
And their parents are also super rich.
And they're super, super rich, right? So they can afford it.
Yeah.
And the father is, you know, the father is like, no, I think she should be in public school. The mother's like, no, I think she should be around people that are just like her, because we don't know how they're going to treat her. And so it goes on where she's graduated from the school. She's back with her sisters and her parents. One of her sisters is getting ready to be married, and she's engaged to Jeff. Her sister Caroline is. It seems to me like her sisters are very supportive of Carla. Her father is also very much in Carla's corner, but her mother, and you see this when she goes to her room and her mother decides to decorate it. Not the way that Carla wants, but the way that she wants to decorate, because she's an adult now. She is a young adult. And Carla's like, well, what about my table where I had my tea parties? Why is it not there? You know, because she hasn't lived there for a long time. She's been in a boarding school, it sounds like. Chime in, please, if you would.
Well, I really like the movie. I would disagree about one part of it.
What?
To me, while you see it there, I was kind of more on the mom's side until slightly later in the movie, where Carla has a birthday party, and then it really comes out.
Right.
We can get there when we get there, because
okay.
I'm flashing ahead.
And I know that it's the first time you saw it, but when I saw it the first time, I wasn't sure what to think of it either.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, this isn't from Dusk Till Dawn category for me, but I did think it was a very good movie. There's a bit of a montage where you see the mom try to bond with Carla, but it's all over things that Diane Keaton, who plays the mom in this movie, enjoys doing. For example, buying the kind of clothes that she likes, taking her to these fundraisers.
Having her play tennis.
There's an interesting scene at this Humane Society fundraiser with
Yes,
the dogs.
yes.
And Carla kind of releases them.
Yeah, she starts talking to the puppies while they're, and she doesn't understand this.
Mm-hmm.
She's talking to the puppies. She's like, "Hi, puppies," and they're in cages. And then she starts barking. And then gets all the puppies all riled up. And then she releases them from the cages, and everything just chaos ensues.
If I have the line right, which I may not, later that night, Diane Keaton gets in a argument with the dad over, what's homegirl's name?
Carla. Homegirl? Carla.
And Carla ends up hitchhiking back to her training school.
Yes.
In Santa Barbara.
Yes, and the doctor was saying, well, why do you think she hitchhiked all the way back here?
Next time we may not be so lucky.
Right.
She needs independence. The family agrees to let her go to a trade school. Alana, take over.
It's a polytech school. And this is where...
Keep going.
This is where we are introduced to another person with a disability. His name is Daniel McMahon, played by Giovanni Ribisi. And she helps him through registration. Because she's trying to register, and they said, well, you can't register if you don't pay.
Yeah.
She is able to pay because her parents are able to give her the money, and she pays him. It's like, okay, you can register. You're all registered. And so they're making fun of this kid, Daniel. I'm sorry.
That's your stick. Go ahead.
That's not my shtick. It's just
knocking over the
by accident.
Go ahead. Keep
anyway,
going.
So they're making fun of him because he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like
he's listening to music when he's on the line. He's
listening to music. So she directs him to the right place to go. And they introduce each other. He's like, "Hi, I'm Daniel McMahon. Hi, I'm Carla Tate." And so that's how they meet each other. And she's going through her classes. What do you think about that scene? I know I'm kind of skipping ahead. There's a lot of things in the movie.
Yeah.
What do you think about this scene where this girl is like obviously flirting with the instructor, right? And she's like, yeah, learning about RAM and ROM and bit and byte. And he's like, so Carla, what do you think? And she's like, well, I know the difference between a bit and a byte.
I like the scene. You could make the argument that it's not important to the overall story of the movie.
Yes.
But I think it gives us a little bit of insight to what it's like for Carla going to a school with people.
And then she makes a comment to her. She's like, he's kind of cute, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And you do see Daniel a lot more because while she's at the school, she said she meets up with Daniel, and she's like, well, I have to wait for my father because he's gonna pick me up and take me home. And he's like, well, do you want to hang out for a little bit? Get something to eat or something, first before you go home. And she's like, okay. And he's like, and by the way, I can drive.
Here's something I really like about that sequence.
Mm-hmm.
The typical Hollywood thing would be she hangs out with Daniel and she misses her dad. Everybody in the family freaks out at her, and they pull the leash back in a sense.
Right, exactly.
She's limited. That didn't happen in this movie.
No.
She hung out with him and then went home. I was totally expecting for the parents to freak out.
I wasn't sure about that too.
Yeah.
But she made it in time, and she also found out where he worked, and as a baker in the local bakery.
And he also volunteered for this marching band.
Yes, but that was later on in the movie.
Okay, for some reason I'm conflating the two and thinking.
Right, because he really loves marching band music, which is kind of funny. It was one of his quirks. And so time goes by, they hang out a lot. The family's finding out about Daniel. The dad kind of teases her about Daniel. He's like, "No, he's just my friend, but he's not a boyfriend. He's just my friend." Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're hanging out together. They go to his apartment because they go to his apartment and they're hanging out and they're watching The Graduate. I guess it's her favorite movie.
It's a good movie.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
And he asks her to be his girlfriend, and she says yes.
Then we see the man from Chicago Hope.
Ernie.
Yes.
Explain about Ernie, please.
Ernie, we don't know a lot about him, but here's kind of a mixture of the information we have and what I believe to be the case. He is a Vietnam vet who the father hires as a go-between between Daniel and Dad. The dad is super rich. He sells...
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
What do you mean?
I didn't realize that may have been, that was someone that his dad hired.
I said this is a mixture of what we know and my assumptions, right?
Okay.
The dad is like a successful Mercedes dealer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's super rich.
Yes.
And I think that's Ernie's role. Like the dad found this guy to help.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that Ernie does this not just with Daniel, but with other rich parents of people with disabilities. That's his main gig, being the go-between. Because he's a gentle soul.
Yes.
We know that he's had some problems in the past, which is maybe why he can relate so well to Daniel.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like a friend / helper.
Yeah.
Who maybe drops in once or twice a week to make sure that everything's cool with the apartment. And
yes. And he seems
Daniel's
like
not freaking out.
He really does seem like a nice guy.
Yes.
Like a genuinely nice guy. Like he isn't just doing this because his father hired him.
Mm-hmm.
He just really actually is connecting with Daniel.
Keep going, babes.
So, Carla is mystified because she's like, "Oh, you have your own apartment? That's awesome. I want to have my..." And she brings it up to her family at a dinner.
At a birthday party.
At her birthday party.
Yes.
And this is where you see Mrs. Elizabeth Tate, her mother, just freak out and says, "No, we're not going to have this conversation." And so she wants to kind of sweep it under the rug. Never to talk about it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of see her mothering coming out, like, "I don't want her to have an apartment. What if she burns something?" And her father is like, No. She has to do this.
Yeah.
And her father is the kind of dad where he's like, "I'm not just thinking about Carla, but I'm also thinking about our family.
Mm-hmm.
I want what's best for our family, and our girls are doing well, but we, I want what's best for our family, and it's not just Carla." And I think he's one of those dads that even though he's a rich guy, he really wants his family to know him as dad and husband.
We know that he's had a past full of mistakes too, but it seems to me like he's doing his best to, for lack of a better term, repent for those sins.
No, that's a very good term.
Thank you.
Repent, redeem.
Yes.
He wants to show his family that he, despite all his mistakes, he wants to be the stand-up guy that he knows he can be.
Not perfect, but he's trying his best.
Right.
Yes.
And you see the bond that he has with Carla. I think it's really sweet, actually. I think it's very sweet.
Yes.
And so anyway, and so she gives in and says, "Well, okay, we'll let you have this apartment." And she's like, "That is the best birthday present I could ever have." And it was just like a sweet scene, Yeah. She was so happy. And so she talks to the, is it the realtor? I don't know who it is.
I believe so.
This guy, and he's very honest with Mrs. Tate and says, "Elizabeth," I don't know if that's what he called her. Mrs. Tate? Yeah, Mrs. Tate. She's like, "Mrs. Tate." Lizzie. Mrs. Tate, there are people that will not have somebody like Carla get an apartment from them, and that's the honest truth. That's reality. And she says yes, but she is a very unique woman. So I think at this point you see that Elizabeth is trying.
Oh yeah, Elizabeth is not a completely bad human being.
No, she's not. She's
a person with flaws.
She is a person with flaws, and she understands.
Yes.
That she has flaws.
Yeah.
She's not saying, "Oh, I'm perfect."
She's not completely unaware of herself.
No.
I don't hate her in this movie.
No, I don't hate her, but I do think she's like way overbearing.
Yes.
But she's like, this is my daughter. She's very unique, and she says yes, but it is these a unique young woman like her that people that have apartments like this will not give to her.
Yes.
And she says, I think you should. She is an amazing woman, and I think you should give her a chance. And she's like, he says, I would agree. I would totally agree with that. And so he's one of those realtors that is willing to give her a chance.
He also knows that the parents are super rich.
And and they'll pay extra money to do it.
Yeah, and there's going to be insurance that they
But I really do think that this guy wants to try. I do think so.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that her parents are loaded.
So now, Juliette Lewis, a.k.a. Carla Tate,
yes,
has an apartment.
Yes, and she's very happy.
Yes.
She there's a montage where she's like rearranging her stuffed animals. What else is she doing?
A bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
None of which I remember right now.
Yeah.
But this opens up a new level in the relationship between Carla and Daniel, doesn't it?
Yes. And so
Thanksgiving seems like a reason to be thankful now.
Right. Shall I go into that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So they've been having questions about sex, which is kind of hilarious. Coming from their own, their own idea about what really happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what Carla's been learning at school, and it's so funny to see her be really honest about it at the dinner table, even though I wouldn't have done that. But it's funny because you kind of get to see, somebody said this at school, and Thomas Porter said this at school, and this is what I'm learning from school that you're not teaching me, right?
Yeah.
So it's obvious that she knows more than what her mother could have told her.
Mm-hmm.
They have a question. They're in the relationship, and Daniel and Carla are having this conversation. Like, have you ever done it before? And it's kind of a funny situation because, if you're an outsider looking in, you're thinking, oh no, they probably haven't, right? They don't understand it. They probably don't even know what the word means.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny because they have this idea and they're looking through this like sex book, right? I don't know if is it a picture book?
It's The Joy of Sex.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have to laugh at this scene, but it is kind of a little bit weird.
Yes.
But she's like, yeah, what about, I was thinking about like 139 and like, yeah, but then there's like 146 and I was also thinking about 84. I'm guessing they're talking about pictures and explanation.
What they want to do.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, and she's like, he's like, so are you ready to do this? And he's like opening the
condoms.
It's kind of a funny scene.
Then there's a discussion, hey, why don't we wait until Thanksgiving?
She goes, I think
because we get more than 2 desserts.
Yeah, you get more than 2 desserts.
Which sounds like something I could say, except
like,
why wait till Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Well, I was like, yeah, and the holidays are really special, and that's where I'm thinking.
Yes.
Because she's more emotionally attached.
So she goes to eat dinner with her family. She knows that she's DTF. And you know what that stands for.
Yes, I understand what that is.
Yes. So she's happy during the dinner.
And she's like, yeah, but then she's like, are we almost done? And she's like, Carla, why are you asking that? She's like, well, I don't want to get home too late. And we already know,
Because she's DTF.
Yeah.
Should I say with the acronym?
No, I know. I think everybody can figure out what it is.
Okay, go ahead. She goes home to her place, talks to her mom, hangs up the phone, and then has a little bit of fun.
But I have to explain the scene because I thought it was such a funny part in the scene.
Yes.
They're getting, all the things they need that, they're ready, right? And then she's like, do you think we need some music, Daniel? And he's like, okay, I'll get the music. I hear some paper rustling I heard some paper rustling in the scene.
He's getting the CD, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he puts on the CD, and what is it? 76 trombones. It's a marching band playing it. We both think it's a really funny scene.
Yes.
Of all the music you could choose.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Billie Holiday. It was that. Okay, continue on, my dear. Continue on.
Things keep going well. They go to prom. Everything is good.
It's some kind of a dance. I don't know what it is. But.
Yeah. They go downstairs. We discover that Carla passed her classes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But
Daniel
didn't. And this is around the time where we find out that Daniel's dad is a little bit of a dick. Because he
a
refuses,
rich one, but very, very much a jerk in this movie.
He refuses to pay for Daniel's place unless he's making a passing grade.
Yeah.
So now Daniel may have to move to Florida because Dad won't help him out, and his mom lives in Florida, right?
Right, and he's basically now pawning him off on his mother, which I think is really, really terrible. Mm-hmm. Now it's his mother's turn, and he doesn't know what to do.
Before that can happen, we're having a dinner at this country club that involves Carla's sisters.
Yeah, because Caroline, it's like a dinner to celebrate the upcoming... Party. Yeah, it's the engagement party to celebrate the upcoming wedding of Caroline and Jeff.
Yes. So they go there. Daniel's there. He decides to have a few drinks.
A lot of drinks.
And then he rocks the mic.
Well, okay, let me explain this. So Jeff gives a, says something about his lovely fiancée, Caroline. And they're about ready to dance to their favorite song.
They are dancing.
They're dancing to their favorite song, Baby, I'm Yours. It's being performed by this group. So he interrupts the song. Daniel does, because he's already drunk. He staggers to the stage. Interrupts the song. And says, I just want to say that there's a special girl, and her name is Carla. And I love Carla. And she loves me too. And we love each other so much that we did it. Yeah. And the
crowd starts laughing.
And she's like, that's not what he's trying to, and she's like really, really
Car's
like
pissed.
She's embarrassed beyond belief. I mean, she wants to get out of there. And the people are laughing, and then he's like, and we did it to the song 76 trombones, and they're just having a ball with this.
Yeah. Carla runs out. There's a big argument. She leaves with her family upset. And now it's time for Daniel to go to Florida.
Yes. Oh, they do have a huge argument outside, and she says she never wants to see him again.
Yes. I basically gave a summation of that. Right. So it's also time for Caroline to get married. Mm-hmm. It's the night before, everybody's upset. And Daniel's talking on the train with some dude who we never see again. He decides to leave and head back to San Francisco.
And meanwhile, Carla is like, oh, I really miss Danny. Mm-hmm. I miss Daniel. I wish he was here. She doesn't know what's going on with him.
Daniel hitchhikes back to the city. By the time he gets there, the wedding is in progress. He interrupts the ceremony. And
he's in the vent, by the way.
Yes. Him and Juliette Lewis kind of agree, okay, we're going to move on from here. Mm-hmm. There is a reception, and a big fight ensues between Diane Keaton and Juliette Lewis. Juliette basically walks away from her saying, we're going to have our own wedding and you're not going to be invited.
Right. And she's like, and I thought it was really funny because she's like, I don't like what you did with Caroline's wedding. I don't like the big centerpieces. I don't like this. The only thing I like is this dress.
Well, the dress is really nice.
The dress is really pretty.
So anyways, she organizes this wedding and invites the dad, the other two sisters. Is Diane Keaton invited, or we get the sense that she's just...
Well, the dad says to her before the wedding, she says, Carla asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I'm going to go. And I think he was basically saying, you can soak all you want to, but I'm going to be there for our daughter's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe she decided... I'm guessing that she could come if she wanted to.
The wedding ceremony happens.
It's a beautiful ceremony, too. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Juliette Lewis gets married. She's walking back down the aisle the opposite way. And who does she see?
Her mama.
In a hat.
In a hat.
And plus he was wearing other stuff, too.
And she wears a lot of hats, you said, in movies.
I've noticed that Diane Keaton seems to be a big fan of hats. Yeah. Maybe that's just a misperception I have. But something tells me you've heard of the crazy cat lady?
She's the crazy
hat lady. In any event.
Yeah.
They go outside, a marching band comes and plays, and then Juliette Lewis is about ready to go off into the sunset, but tells her mom, hey, listen, babe, everything's going to be all right.
Babe?
And then...
She doesn't call her mom that.
Yeah, but I don't know the female equivalent to bro.
She just says, don't worry, Mom, everything will be fine.
Don't worry, Ma.
Mom.
Everything will be fine. Ma. Don't worry, Ma. Everything's going to be fine, Ma. And then they drive off. And that's the end of the movie.
Yes.
I gotta say, I was not sure what to expect going into this film, but I really enjoyed it.
Good.
It's not my favorite movie, but it's a strong 7.
I give it... so I give this movie an 8.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I give it an 8. I give it an 8 because this is not your typical Hollywood movie about people with disabilities, I think. And I really think that Diane Keaton gives a very realistic depiction of how some mothers and how some parents as a whole handle children with disabilities. And how if you control them enough, I think in some ways it stunts their growth as a person, and it also stunts their brain growth, I think.
I agree with you. I would also say that Carla is a little bit ungrateful.
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Well, okay. Explain why you think so, and I'm going to comment.
Okay. There's a few examples of this, right? A lot of this has to do with money, and as we've established, I didn't grow up with Robin Leach doing profiles on my parents, but...
Profiles of the poor and homeless.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
What was that one skit? Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. No, that was a song by... that was the first album by Big L, right? Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous.
I have no idea. It might have been.
God, I hope I don't get that wrong. But anyways.
It's okay. People can look it up, I'm sure.
Big L, rest in peace.
Okay.
In any event, there's a few scenes that demonstrate to me that Carla is ungrateful. There is a scene where, after we find out that Daniel has to move, she approaches her mom with the idea of maybe he could move in with me. The mom freaks out, and the dad, rightfully so, sides with Diane Keaton. Mm-hmm. I thought she was ungrateful because it's like, okay, if you want him to move in, fine, but you don't have enough money to pay for this place.
Right. So I didn't even realize that. Okay.
And then she makes this big deal about how she's paying for the wedding herself. Mm-hmm. But we know that the sisters help her out with the costs.
Right.
Now, we don't know to what extent. Maybe it was just like $1 here, but something tells me that they gave her more money than that.
Right.
And presumably the sisters are getting the money through the parents.
Right.
You know, maybe not directly, but they probably have a nice trust fund that they're dipping into.
Right.
I also thought it was very rude and disrespectful for Carla to freak out at the sister's reception.
I will say that I kind of agree with you to a point.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me.
Are you talking about the dinner when Daniel came and
Well, I thought that was rude of Daniel.
Yes.
But I totally get why Carla would freak out there. I'm talking later on in the movie, after Caroline gets married, they're at the reception.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could have been handled differently, but I thought it was funny.
It was funny, but what price? We now see Carla is arrogant.
I don't know that she understands that she is. See, this is where I kind of disagree with you. I agree with you to a point. It's easy to say that she's arrogant and ungrateful, but at what extent does she understand that? Because remember, she has a disability.
Okay.
She has a learning disability. She may not get it. But in some ways, her thunder has been stolen from her mother, right?
Okay.
You know, she wants to do all these things. And she did say to her mother, you never look at me. You always look at me different from all the other two girls. I'm just like, you're trying to figure me out, but you haven't figured me out yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. So I would have to agree with you to a point.
There's things I don't like about Diane Keaton, but then there are other aspects of her personality I get. So she's basically forced into this position at the end of the movie to go to the wedding and give her blessing. But now the husband and Miss Keaton are forced to pay for Homeboy's rent because he married the daughter.
But we don't know that.
How do you think they make rent?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think this is left to interpretation. Maybe they do because they are helping Carla with the rent. If in fact they do move back into Carla's apartment,
I'm assuming they're going to help her with the rent. They're not going to let her go on the street. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, they don't have the means for it because right now he only works 2 jobs, and he's not being paid a lot either. So,
well, this movie brings up a lot about disability when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
As we've discussed before, if you're a person with a disability, at least back then, minimum wage laws don't apply to you.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I have not, and maybe that's something I should be looking up too, about minimum wage laws for disabilities back then and how it is now, because I don't know much about it.
And the movie, I mean, it's 20 years old, but it's not like from the 1930s.
No, it's not.
This is all within our lifetime.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
When we were conscious and messing around with girls and all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay, babes. Okay.
I wasn't messing around with girls.
Uh-oh.
You were.
Yes.
I can't relate to that.
Well, but you were messing around with boys in 99.
Not really.
Uh-oh.
I was not, actually. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I was warding off boys. That's what I was trying to do.
I was focused on getting her done.
I was trying to get... well, maybe I wasn't necessarily warding off boys. I was thinking about warding off boys. I didn't do a very good job.
Oh, my goodness. But you know,
I was too nice.
My point being that we were like active in a time where the labor laws did not favor people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And this film kind of, it touches on it, but it doesn't go deep with it because the characters are rich.
Right.
It gives them the out not to.
Right.
Explore that.
Yeah, because you're right. This is when we were coming up. But yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Something I need to look into.
What does this film say about independence?
Well, I think it affirms what I've always believed, that if you keep somebody in a gilded cage, whether they're rich, whether they're not rich, whether they have a disability or not, they're going to find a way to fly out of the cage and never come back if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Carla's case, kind of reminds me of myself in some ways, because there have been times in my life where I felt like I was being kept from things that I wanted to do.
I love you, honey.
What?
No, sorry, go ahead.
What was that?
I was trying to make a joke.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
What joke was that?
I love you, honey. No, I don't know. I shouldn't have done that. Keep going.
Oh my goodness.
Take two.
Take two.
Yes.
No, that was kind of funny actually. No, I mean it's like, and trying to, and I've been going, and I still feel like it's still a battle for me, because there are some people in my life that really feel like they know better than I do, right? And I don't have a learning disability. I'm perfectly capable of making decisions on my own. And in fact, I've made decisions, and some decisions were not the best decisions, but they were my decisions. Carla is a little different because she does have learning disabilities, but she is pushing back and saying, hey, you know what? You've made decisions for me, and now it's my turn to make my own decisions. And I like her for that. I think she stands up for herself.
If I had super rich parents,
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, like I always say, oh, I wish my parents had like tons of money growing up, right? But this film makes me look at it another way. Like it's probably a good thing, because
I see that too.
Honestly,
yes.
If I had super rich parents, I would never stand up for myself. I would go along. I would go with the program so quickly.
I don't think I would either. I would have a hard time, and also I think about the stuff versus using what stuff versus being content with what you have, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think I would appreciate all the things that my parents tried to provide for me if I grew up in a rich family, because they could give me whatever they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this film makes me glad that I didn't have rich parents, because I don't think that I would be the person that my friends enjoy being around.
I wouldn't be, and me too, I wouldn't appreciate, because I'll give credit to where credit is due.
To me, go ahead.
Not to you.
Okay, go ahead.
This has nothing to do with you, Bubs.
That's it, but go ahead. If you're giving credit, it's all to do with me, but go ahead.
Bubs.
We'll make an exception this time. Go ahead. Oh. No, go ahead, please.
No. Because of the humble, the way that my mom approaches being humble about what you have, right? Mm-hmm. She never was into like getting like the flashiest bag or the designer clothes. I mean, she can look nice no matter what she's wearing. Whether she's got some nice jewelry or whether she doesn't. She knows how to do that. But not to pay attention to all those things and to appreciate what you have, because you're being content with having food on the table, being content with having a bed. Doesn't have to be the nicest looking bed, but it's a bed. Being content with having a couch. Being content with living in an apartment. May not be a house, but it's an apartment. Having that foundation, instead of worrying about how much money you can pay for the designing of your kitchen. How to up your game on your kitchen or your bathroom or your sinks or whatever, Mm-hmm. And people just, there are some people that I know that I won't mention that really pay attention to a lot of stuff because they can get that stuff.
Yes.
And I don't.
I think I led us down a rabbit hole.
Yes.
But it's this film, I like how it deals with independence and disability. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we have a little bit of a different perspective on this from most people because we are disabled adults. Mm-hmm. But I see independence in relation to everybody. Disability heightens it, but I think
Yes.
it applies to pretty much everyone.
Uh-huh.
Independence to me is a spectrum thing, right? So there's people who have no independence whatsoever, and their parents give them showers when they're adults and all that stuff.
Yes.
And then there are people who, like, the other side of that would be somebody who just, like, lives off of the land somewhere in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a matter of where do you fall on the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of those two extremes. Most people land somewhere in the middle.
I would say I'm in the middle, yes.
Yeah, but to be truly independent implies that you live on your own, not in a house, but out in the woods somewhere, and you don't depend on society for anything.
So true dependence from all...
independence.
No.
Go
True independence, what I'm saying is true independence to what society can give us.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Would be living out in the woods and hunting with a bow and arrow for your own food, and you make that bow and arrow by yourself. That's true independence. And most people fall on the spectrum, and I think it's a matter of deciding where you are willing to fall in that spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's important to you. And I think Juliette Lewis is figuring that out. It's interesting to see how she comes to those conclusions. For example, she'll let her parents pay the rent, but she wants to finance her own wedding.
Right.
Now, there's an interesting debate. Does she truly do that? But at least that discussion is being had by her and Daniel.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah.
What do you think? Something else that comes up to me is the idea of crip drag.
What is that?
It's when non-disabled people play disabled characters.
Yeah.
What do you think about that in relation to this movie? Because both Daniel and Carla are played by actors who don't have a disability. At least not one that we know of.
Yes, I know. No, so I kind of go back and forth with this because I honestly think that they were really good.
They were.
Having said that, it would have been even more interesting if they had two disabled actors. If they could find somebody that, or maybe even would be better if they didn't have disabled actors and they had people with disabilities that were interested in acting, and they cast them in the movie instead of Juliette Lewis and Giovanni Ribisi. So I kind of go back and forth with it, but they did do a really good job with their characters. I think they stayed in character. So, but I also think that the way that they handled disabilities in this movie was really realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about the movie or the characters?
I want to do. I want to ask you about Elizabeth Tate, who is and Radley Tate. I don't know who the guy was, but he was really good.
Yeah.
What do they say? What to you? I'm asking.
Go ahead.
What do you think they tell us about brain growth? Like, if you are thinking about this from a blind perspective, because we both have met blind people that were well-adjusted and blind people that were maladjusted.
Yes.
Rather, they were being very sheltered. And what are these parents saying about anyone with a disability who has been sheltered?
It's weird because I know we had this discussion earlier with From Dusk Till Dawn about how I believe that George Clooney and Harvey Keitel are the yin and yang, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel similarly about the parents and the other sister. There's the dad who, he's not going to let Juliette Lewis just like drive a car and go out clubbing. But
he's going to be realistic about it.
He's going to be realistic about it. And realistic doesn't just mean keeping her in their house and only doing things that the parents want to do.
Right, exactly.
He's trying to find the balance. And then you have Diane Keaton, who I think in her heart of hearts, she does want Juliette Lewis to have independence.
Yeah.
But it's the independence that she sees as fit. It's not working with Juliette Lewis to come up with the plan.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that scene where they're on a boat. her and Radley are on a boat, and he is explained to her, look, it's fine. I understand why you feel that way towards Carla. She's like, maybe I'm just not, I'm thinking about things that me as a mother, I'm not supposed to, I shouldn't be thinking about, but I feel that way towards my daughter. I don't know how to bond with her. And Radley, her husband, was saying, we're going to get through this. It's fine. You're doing a good job. The girls are not drug addicts. They're not this. They're not having all these problems. And you're doing a good job. And she's like, yeah, but it's Carla. I mean, how can I bond with her? I don't even know what she likes. And I think this is a really good, honest discussion she's having with her husband. Like, I know I'm a flawed human being, but I want to do better.
So to me, Radley represents, besides the fact that he's a Republican.
Oh, you had to put that political.
He put that in there.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but...
And who knows? He may have even been joking to her. Who knows if his character is even a Republican?
We don't know that yet.
And there are different extremes in the conservative community, just like there are in every community. I'm going down a rabbit hole.
You are.
Yes. To me, Radley represents the type of person you should have if you're a disabled human.
Absolutely.
And Diane Keaton represents the type of parents that society thinks you should have.
Uh-huh.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen that in my own life too, and I can kind of see both of these parents in my life. Well, but here's something that I brought up that you thought was kind of interesting, right? It would be better. So I don't know which is worse, because I have somebody in my life where this person who will not be named does not see me on a regular basis and doesn't talk to me on a regular basis. But even before that, even before when I was a child, could not understand how I would get along as an adult. Right?
Okay.
But the other person in my family that has seen me and knows me as an adult can see how I would get along as an adult with a little bit of help and guidance. And this person does mean well. Now, what I think about Elizabeth Tate's character, I could understand why she would think that if she wasn't in Carla's life very much, if she didn't see how she was as an adult, because of course you're not going to understand it. You're not around this person 24/7, 7 days a week. You're not calling them regularly, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that she is around her and she sees her makes it all the more painful to watch.
Yeah, because she's still letting her own perceptions guide how she treats her daughter.
Yes, and I think that's way worse. Mm-hmm. Way worse than being away from your disabled adult child and not seeing that on a regular basis. So how would she know that? But the fact that she is around her a lot and she sees her, she still can't figure it out. And that's worse to see. That's way worse to see.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yes.
But again, I don't think she's evil.
I don't think so either.
I just think that she's caught in her own perspective.
Yes, and she can't see the forest from the trees. Mm-hmm. Where she is coming from her own perspective. She can't see the forest from the trees. But I think that she's making a start at the wedding. And
we can both agree that Carla's parents are better than Daniel's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you don't even see his mother. You don't even know what kind of a person she's like. The father would just rather,
He hangs up on Daniel.
He does. He's like, okay, it's not. I've done this for a while. Now it's your mother's turn, and it's like, what horrible parents. I mean, then you see the extreme with his parents versus Carla's parents. At least you know that Carla's parents do love her.
Yeah.
In their own way, but they do love her, and her sisters love her, and she is loved by a lot of people. Daniel, unfortunately, is very lost in that he doesn't know where to go with his parents. It's really sad.
It leads to an interesting question. I hope so, at least. But
okay,
roll with me here.
All right.
how does Daniel fit into the family after the wedding? So we have this great celebration at the end, but 2 or 3 years down the line, what's his relationship with the father-in-law? Or with his brother-in-laws? Or with the other sisters?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because after that incident at the dinner, right? Mm-hmm. Does his father-in-law forgive him for that and say, you know what, you made a mistake?
Oh, I think he does.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I almost don't even think that's a question, but what's the relationship like years into it?
I think they grow. Because when Daniel didn't have a good father in his life, I think that he, in turn, Mr. Tate, becomes a father to Daniel, but also is a good father still to Carla. Mm-hmm. And I think that the mother, I think this is a new beginning for her. I like to think that this is a new beginning for her because she has to accept that her daughter is now married to Daniel. And so now she has Carla in her life and she has Daniel in her life. And now I think maybe it's a new beginning for her. I'd like to think that.
It also speaks to the idea of what is perfection. Mm-hmm. Because from the outside looking in, maybe perfection is a wrong word. Because this family doesn't have a perfect life, but they have they're rich, right? But they have 2 daughters who are successful in their field. And they have Carla, who may not be your typical definition of success, but she's doing the best she can. And the parents still have issues, right? Yeah. So there's the stuff with Carla, but there's also, they have a gay daughter, and
they're dealing with that.
The family has never met her partner.
Exactly, yeah.
And it sounds like she's been in a long-term relationship, but they don't meet her until Carla's wedding. The partner isn't at Caroline's wedding. No. The partner can't be there because Caroline's parents are financing it and the mom doesn't want the partner there.
Yeah, and so that's another issue that's coming up too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does this movie, I guess not say about perfection, but what does it say about acceptance?
I think it says a lot to say. I think it has a lot to say about acceptance and success, right? Because there are times in my life where I look at myself and I'm like, I should be doing this. I feel kind of inadequate. What can I do to be a member of society? Why am I not at my goal or whatever it is? But I think about that and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Carla in this movie is showing that she may not be at all of her goals, but she's on the journey to them. She may not be there yet, but she's making her way there. She's on her journey, and I think we're all on our journeys, wherever we are. And it doesn't help to make comparisons, because you're always going to, if you make a comparison, and it's with anything in life, whether you write poetry or not, whether you are into music or not, right? Mm-hmm. You make comparisons with somebody, you're always going to be inferior to that person, and it's not a good feeling. And I think that, acknowledging that we are on our own journeys to wherever we're going in our lives, we have to think about that and accept it. And I have a hard time with that sometimes.
Yeah.
Would you say that you do or don't?
I have a huge issue with comparison.
Yeah.
I'm always comparing myself to other people, whether good or bad, right?
I have to really check myself too, yes.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It is. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I do have that, but I have to because in college, I had a very wise professor. He was one of my favorite professors. And he always told us, he would give us he called them Marshisms. And I'll explain that later on outside of the podcast.
Go ahead.
But he always said to us in our classes when we had him that comparison is the root of inferiority, and explained it. He's like, you compare yourself to somebody, you're going to feel inferior. So don't make those comparisons, because you may not be at the level, because there's always going to be somebody at another level than you are that is better than you at your craft or what have you, but you can't compare yourself.
You do realize that your professor is not the first person to say that.
I know that.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying that he isn't, but that's what I got from him.
Got you.
And I'm taking it and trying to apply that to my own self. No, I know that he probably isn't the only person who said it.
Because I've heard that way before I knew you. And I did not know your professor.
No.
Unless everybody I've heard that from is just copying off of him.
No, but my point being is that's what I took away from him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever forget that, because sometimes I feel that way about myself.
I think it's healthy, though, in some respects, right? So you could look at somebody, it's how you do it, though. So, for example, you could look at somebody who is, okay, let's say as a blind person.
Yes.
You could look at somebody who's successful in the field that you want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say, wow, that person's really doing well.
They got it all together.
And then it's how you follow that up with. Do you follow that up with, and I'm such a loser, I'm failing, and I'll never be as good as this person, or I'm jealous of them because they got all the breaks in life, and everybody in my life just screwed me over? Or do you follow it up with, I wonder how they were able to navigate that road. Maybe I could do some research and find out what they did that made them successful.
So I try to go with that, the third thing you just said about how they are able to navigate it, because I don't think I'm a loser. I did make a lot of accomplishments, and I'm still on my journey, and I do wonder, well, geez, how did they do so well, and are they really doing well, and how can I make that? How can I get to my goal?
Yeah.
And I can't think of it like, oh, this is awful, I'm a loser, I'm this, I'm that, and it doesn't help to do that. Yeah. It really doesn't. And just, using it as a lesson and thinking about, well, what can I learn from this person? That's the way that I try to see it.
Nice.
But I go back and forth with it too, because we all have compared ourselves to somebody.
Yeah, and it's how often you do it too.
I try not to think about it, because I know that if I think about it, I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
Is there anything else you want to say or ask about this movie?
No. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad you thought that Juliette Lewis and Giovanni Ribisi really did well in this movie, and I'm glad it made you think about things like that we discussed.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it's not Jacob blessing water in a squirt gun, but it's still a really good movie and worth my time.
Right.
I'm glad I saw it, and maybe one day I will even revisit the film to get a different perspective. Mm-hmm. The only other question I would ask you about the film is...
About what one? Which one?
The other sister.
Okay.
She has a gay sister, and I bring up her being gay for the reason of she's also a bit of an outcast in the movie.
Yes.
But we don't see her story.
No.
What do you think it was like for her growing up, being gay, and maybe feeling like you could share it to an extent? But it was also kind of swept under the rug. And the focus of the family is on your disabled sister.
I would imagine that she, like Carla, felt like, well, why is she more important than me? And I'm going through issues. She may not agree with my lifestyle, but at least... at least acknowledge me, even if you don't agree with my lifestyle, at least acknowledge me that I'm your daughter. Right? Because remember that funny scene where she's like, I give to gay causes, I give to this and that. It's like, but why can't you do that with me? And she's like, because they're not my child.
Right.
I thought that was really funny.
That was.
And I'm like, well, I mean, if I were her, if I were Heather was her name.
I'm bad with names.
If I were Heather, I would probably feel the same way that she did.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're and maybe that's why Heather is so sympathetic to Carla because of it.
I could see that.
Because she seemed like she really wants Carla to have the best life that she can have. And I think she genuinely means it. And I think because she's also not getting the love from her mother that she wants, she is saying, well, why can't you be like that with me? You know?
Yes.
Why can't you acknowledge it? Even if you don't agree, why can't you acknowledge that I'm in a same-sex relationship and that I want you to meet Michelle? And I understand why Diane Keaton would feel that way, but I also wonder how Heather was able to deal with it.
Yeah. I'm glad that they didn't focus on Heather, only because it's not her story.
Right.
But I thought that we should at least acknowledge her character.
I do like that the sisters, how they're bonding with Carla as an adult. I love that.
They're not just dismissing her.
No, they're not. They're a part. I mean, she is a part of her of Caroline's bachelorette party, albeit very strange. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great that they're treating her. They're not dehumanizing her. They're treating her as if she were one of the girls. That's how I felt.
That was cool.
That was very cool. Yeah.
Yes. So The Other Sister, we both agree is a really good movie. And From Dusk to Dawn, we are very divided.
Yes.
But check these movies out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Alana?
Yes.
We also watched a couple of episodes of Star Trek.
Yes.
Deep Space Nine.
I'm going to let you give an overview. And you don't have to like give the entire story, but...
Yeah, because we're like an hour and a half deep into this.
Yes, we are.
But...
there's other things we want to discuss.
Yes, this might become Joe Rogan territory.
Oh, goodness.
But we'll see.
Oh.
I'll give a brief episode of an Odo.
It was good.
Focused.
It was very good, yes.
Story.
I think it's probably one of my favorite Odo episodes.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It starts off, Chief O'Brien and Odo are coming home from some conference. They have a brief exchange because Odo bought presents for Colonel Kira, and O'Brien didn't get anything for Keiko.
Yes.
So there's a funny exchange. And then there's this weird thing that seems to be following them. They can't figure out what it is. Eventually, we discover that it's another changeling.
Mm.
They go back to the station. Odo puts the changeling in the brig only temporarily. He talks to Cisco, and Cisco's like, well, we're at war with your people. We don't know if this guy is safe. Odo explains he hasn't had contact with any other changelings, bro. I want to vouch for him, and you should know me well enough to let him out under my custody. Cisco reluctantly agrees.
Mm-hmm.
The other changeling is a bit judgmental of Odo.
Mm-hmm.
We see this when Odo takes him back to his quarters, and the changeling notices a picture of Colonel Kira and Odo together.
Mm-hmm.
And basically explains, I dated a solid once, but it ended because she wanted kids.
And I couldn't have any kids, yeah.
Odo says, well, Major Kira and I have never talked about having kids. The other changeling basically explains, well, yeah, but me and my girl never talked about it either, and one day she just left. Eventually, they get to talking about names. The other changeling suggests that they call him Laz.
Yes.
And Laz goes around the station. He meets the rest of the crew in Quarks, or some of them. And there's a very awkward exchange where he's basically bad-mouthing solids. At least.
Yeah.
Laz is trying to convince Odo to leave his life on Deep Space Nine and go out with him. There's this really interesting scene where Odo comes back from spending some time with Kira, and there's fire in his quarters. Mm-hmm. First he's concerned, and then he realized that it's just Laz.
Mm-hmm.
Laz forms back into a human shape, humanish.
Yes.
And basically says, I bet you didn't know we could change into fire. This is why you need to come with me, so we could find other changelings who are not connected to the Great Link. Odo kind of shows him what that is when he links with him. And we could form our own society and be our own crew. Then there's this great scene where Laz turns into mist on the promenade. And it's basically he's taunting what his abilities over Odo. Mm-hmm. There is a dispute. Some Klingons get involved. And chaos ensues. Mm-hmm. Laz is thrown back into the brig. Odo tries to vouch for him. And remember, this entire episode he's been hearing from Laz, listen, the solids, they don't really understand you. You know, they fear you. That's why you think that they like having you around, but they will turn on you.
Yeah.
Sisko doesn't want Laz to be released, especially into Odo's custody. Mm-hmm. Odo gets mad, tells Kira, listen, if Laz wasn't a changeling, you know Sisko would step up.
Right.
Kira disagrees. She knows that Laz wants Odo to come with him. Mm-hmm. But she frees Laz and says, I'm doing this because I love Odo. I want you to wait here for him. She tells him, go to Diorian 3 or whatever it's called.
Corrales 3.
Corrales 3, that's right.
Something weird like that.
I'm sorry I got it so wrong.
Corrales 3.
Yes. And you asked me, would I ever leave you to go to Corrales 3? And I said, no, but I'd leave you to go to Corrales 4. in any event, I've heard it's much nicer. Okay. She tells Odo, Laz is waiting on Corrales 3. I understand that you got to go and do what you got to do. Odo goes there and basically tells Laz, I'm not going to go any further with you, but I wanted to come here and wish you luck. I thought Laz's line is so great. He's like, I'm going to leave, but I should be the one wishing you luck because you're going back to DS9.
Right.
And to be with the solids.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He returns, which surprises Kira. And she tells him, I want you to share with me. I don't want you to feel like you could be fake.
Yeah, because she felt like she could not relate because she couldn't link with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
They push their hands together. He becomes a gelatinous state and then kind of becomes this light form near the end of the episode, who's embracing Kira. And that's where the episode ends. You said this is one of your favorite Odo episodes.
Yes, I do.
I like it a lot. Why do you think it's so good?
Because I remember in past episodes, it was, you're finding more about Odo's feelings towards Kira. And he's had human relationships too. With, what is that other lady? The one that he had a relationship with?
Oh, in a simple investigation.
Yeah. I forgot what her name was.
Oh, God. I'm going to remember it later.
But he was in love with her at one time. But you already know from watching the episodes that he really loved Kira. Mm-hmm. He's loved Kira for a long time. A long, long time. Like that, like she touched him in a way that no one could ever touch him. And I think it was interesting because Laz was like, so you want to be on DS9 because you love Kira, because of Kira. She's the reason why you're there. I thought that was kind of interesting.
And this is right after they had linked up.
Yes.
So presumably, Laz can see into Odo's consciousness.
Yes.
Do you think that that's true, though?
Bless you.
Thank you.
I don't think it's completely true.
You think he'd still be on DS9?
Yes.
If Kira died or something.
Well, it would. Okay, so he didn't just form relationships with Kira, a relationship with Kira, but he also made friends with O'Brien, Quark, although it's a kind of a weird friendship. With Bashir, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just Kira, although I think he would be devastated if she died.
I don't think he's just there for Kira.
Yeah.
But I do feel that if she died, and I'm not saying if she does or doesn't, there are some twists and turns in the last year. But if she died, I don't know if Odo would stay or not.
He would. I think he would have a conflict.
Yes. I
don't know that he would or not, but it would be devastating for him if she did die. For sure.
For sure.
So I guess my question would be, when they did touch hands together and he was around her and everything, what was the look on her face?
She was very joyous. It looked like she was kind of smiling and happy about this.
Okay. That's good. That's very good.
What do you think this episode teaches us about Kira and love?
I think she really... because you know how when you hear on shows, like, if you love someone, you love someone enough to let them go, right?
Yeah.
I think she was a perfect example of that. I mean, I think about, well, what would I do in that situation? Would I love this person enough to let you go, to do your thing, right? I don't know that I would be able to do that.
Mm.
I mean, if I'm really honest with myself, I don't know how I would deal with it.
So if it comes out tomorrow that I'm not a solid and the other changelings want to just like have a link up with me, you're not going to be in favor of that.
I don't think I could be in favor with that. No.
Okay.
I mean, initially, if I'm really honest with myself, I think I would be selfish.
Mm.
Because I don't know that I would be able to handle that. But she shows a perfect example of loving someone enough to let this person go and figure out what they want to do.
Is Ben Sisko a bigot?
What do you mean?
Well, I would use the term racist, but Odo is a member of a different species. But Odo at one point says to Kira, if Laz wasn't a changeling, Sisko would find a way to get him out of the brig. He uses different verbiage, but the sentiment is still the same.
Well, remember that scene where Odo was talking to Captain Sisko?
Yeah.
And he said something like, I thought you were going to say, I didn't think you were going to say that. I thought you were going to say that because I was a changeling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Captain Sisko is a bigot, no.
Yeah, so basically what... I know the scene you're talking about. Sisko said that Martok didn't want you to watch Laz while he's in the brig.
Yeah.
And he said because you were there when the fight happened, I believe.
You were a witness to a crime.
Yeah.
Or something. You're a witness to that.
Is it possible that Sisko is, for lack of a better term, racist, but it's one of those things, it's unconscious racism?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But, and it isn't just because I like Sisko. I genuinely don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's an interesting scene in this episode where Quark talks to Odo and explains that we fear you because you're basically an unknown, and us humanoid species can only deal with what we know, and that's why we fear your species. That's a very powerful scene. Yeah. And I want to get your perspective. What did you think of that scene?
So this is why I'm not too sure about how Quark really feels about Odo, because he says that he likes Odo, right?
I honestly, I believe Quark when he says that.
I believe it too. But then when he said that, I'm guessing he's talking in general about everybody else.
Yeah, right? He's not just talking about you being Odo. He's talking about you, Odo, and his species.
I'm not sure how to think of that. I'm not sure what to think of that scene, because it's kind of like, well, what do they really feel about Odo when he's not there?
My interpretation is that he's mainly talking about Laz, but he wants to give Odo some tough truths about, listen, this is how I feel about Laz. This is why some people might feel that way about you. It's because of the species you come from.
But it doesn't mean that Quark feels that way.
It doesn't mean that Quark feels that way about Odo, but it could explain why Quark feels that way about other changelings, and why he may have felt that way about Odo in the past, before he got to know him.
Okay.
And Quark is taking a big risk telling Odo that, because he could tell that Odo's in a foul mood. Odo also has a little bit of power being the chief of security on the station.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
What does that scene tell us about Quark as a person?
I think that I mean, you may not agree with me, but I think that by saying that to Odo, because Quark really considers him a friend, and I think that Quark was giving him some truth, that giving him an honest, being honest with him, that very honest with him, that no one has ever been, when it comes to his species, and that he wouldn't be getting it from anybody else except for Quark. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
He was willing to tell him that truth, no matter how much it hurt.
Rom isn't going to say that.
No. Rom is like a happy-go-lucky Ferengi that will do anything his brother said. You know?
Yeah.
I think Rom is very endearing, but not very smart. But I digress. I think that Quark was willing to be honest with him, even if it was going to hurt Odo's feelings. And that's what a true friend does.
We need people like Quark in our lives.
Yes.
In some ways. And we also need people who are completely different from him. Well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does this episode say about holding on to the past?
You gotta put your past behind you. No, I mean, it's like you can hold on to the past so long, but then, I don't know. I go back and forth with it.
Let me...
explain what you mean, because...
Okay. In a sense, both Laz and Odo are holding on to the past.
Yes.
Even though Laz hides it in, let's look towards the future and find other changeling.
Yes.
He's also basing his opinions on the solids on people he met before going to DS9. Right?
Yeah.
And how messed up they may have been.
Yes.
He's not getting to know them. And we kind of see this because Kira helps him escape for Odo, but he still doesn't really understand how love works, right? He's holding on to the past, but he's using the future as his cloak, in a sense.
Yes.
Odo, we can make the argument, is holding on to the past because he has this opportunity to go off with Laz, but he's so connected to the history he has with everybody on DS9 that he's choosing not to do that.
Right. Well, I go back and forth with it because I could say, you don't hold on to the past because it's time to move forward, right? The past is the past, but I think in this case, I would side with Odo on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any more context for the next question I'm going to ask you because I know too much.
Yeah.
But how do you think things with Odo and Kira end? Do they end with one of them dying? Do they end with them getting married? Do they end with Kira getting old?
I don't know. I'm not going to say because I don't want to guess it and be completely wrong.
That's fair.
Because I've been wrong before.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to make that mistake.
Would you recommend this episode to people?
Of course I would. Yes.
Let me ask you another question.
Yes.
Would you recommend it to somebody who's never seen DS9 before?
I wouldn't let them see this first.
Okay.
But I would recommend it to them later on in the show. Not that they see this episode before everything else.
Odo episodes are some of my favorite of the series. You already know he's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a good outcast.
Yes.
Yep. And it sounds to me like this is your favorite Odo episode. Or at least
yes, one of many.
Yeah.
One of many.
I don't think you can really go wrong with an Odo episode.
Absolutely not. No, he is a great character. Has so much depth, and with him and Kira, it's like, wow. They're just...
They work well together.
They do work well together, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about this episode?
No.
Uh-oh. Jaylo.
Yes.
We watched another episode of DS9.
Yes.
Do you want to cover it, or do you want me to give a quick synopsis?
Oh, go on. Give a quick synopsis. You're better at that than I am.
I'm going to quickly rush over this one. And that's because we've been going a long time, but also because we haven't finished the storyline. It's a 4-part episode in the 7th season. And so our analysis will also be kind of fast because of that. But there are a few questions I have about it with you later. Okay, it starts off. Cisco is talking to Cassidy Yates about how he bought this property on Bajor and he wants to retire there someday. We find out that these Klingon battleships were attacked and destroyed. Worf was the commanding officer on one of them, and the last person who saw him was a crewman who left, and Worf was still on the bridge fighting the good fight. The Defiant goes out to search for any signs of life. They find 6 escape pods. Worf is not on any of them. Ezri thinks of Dax's past relationship with Worf and is inspired to steal a shuttlecraft, go and search for him. She finds him, but they're having some problems. They end up abandoning the runabout and transporting down to this planet where they have sex and are kidnapped by the Breen. While this is going on, there's some trouble on Cardassia. Gul Dukat is back in town.
Again.
And he believes that he has the power of the Pah Wraith with him.
Yes.
So he's a little bit more dangerous.
We don't see him in this episode, by the way.
We do see him in this episode.
Oh, when was that?
He talks to Damar early on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Because the founders, something's going on. We know that they're dying, but Damar doesn't know what's going on with them. Right? He has a surgeon change Damar's look. I mean, Damar has a surgeon work on Gul Dukat and make him look like a Cardassian. Like a Bajoran. I'm not thinking today. I'm stuck on stupid.
Oh my goodness.
So by this end of this episode...
You're fine.
Thank you. Gul Dukat looks like a Bajoran. On the space station, Ben decides to propose to Cassidy.
Yep.
She says yes. They're planning a small ceremony. Because Ben sometimes forgets that he's the emissary.
Yes.
We discover that the people of Bajor thinks this is going to be one of the biggest weddings in their history.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit overwhelmed by that. But then Ben has a vision of his dead mother.
Yep.
Saying, listen, the Cisco's path is different from hers. And if they go down the same path, nothing but tragedy is going to befall the emissary.
Yep.
And that's where the episode ends.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I know I covered this out really fast and I left a lot of stuff out of it.
That's okay.
Overall, what did you think of this episode?
It is very... the storylines are... The 2 storylines are very interesting. With Ezri and Worf. And then you've got Ben and
Cassidy Yates.
Cassidy Yates, right.
I like, too, how a lot of the times when they talk about Cassidy, they'll just say her full name, Cassidy Yates.
Cassidy Yates, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Why?
I don't know. I like that.
Okay.
It works for me.
But the way that I thought it was funny how well, not funny, but the way that the prophet was saying, "You are the Cisco." It's kind of funny how they talk.
Yeah, the prophets are weird like
You are the Cisco.
Yes, the Cisco.
Yeah.
And I keep telling you, you are the Jaylo.
Okay.
Jaylo?
Yes.
What does this episode... Kind of a similar question that I asked about the Oda one. But what do we learn about holding on? Because we have Ezri who is holding on to another person's memory of Worf. And we have Cisco who is holding on to...
Jadzia.
Well, I was going to... In some ways, yes. But I was going to say the idea of marriage to Cassidy Yates. Then we have...
Wait. What did you say? Worf?
I said Cisco.
You said Worf.
No, I said Cisco. I said Worf earlier when I was referring to Ezri.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But then I said Cisco.
Okay.
Who's holding on to the idea of marriage and a happy life. We also have Gul Dukat, who is holding on to the idea of power. What does this episode say about us holding on to the past?
Wow. it says another thing. Well, so the interesting, so it's interesting though, because I kind of go back and forth with it, because Esri is probably very confused.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that that she is dealing with all the memories that Dax had, all the memories of the Dax symbiont, right? Including Jadzia's memories, and including her marriage to Worf, and her brief marriage to Worf, right? So she's got to be really confused about what she wants and what she needs, whether she wants Worf or needs Worf, or whether this is just a memory of hers that she has to remember that it's not really her memory. It's Jadzia's memories, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've got Ben Sisko, who is struggling because he really loves Cassidy and he wants to marry her and wants to spend the rest of his life with her, but sees that his dead mother is saying she cannot share the path with you. You have to go it alone. And he's saying, you want me to do what you want me to do, and I want to be happy. So I can see the struggle there. It's really hard for him.
We have reason to believe that the prophets exist outside of time.
Mm-hmm.
So they already know Sisko's going to do what he's going to do. And yet they're giving him a warning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much do you think him knowing this about the prophets affects him going forward?
I don't know. It's a conflict, I would say. Because he isn't just hearing it from the prophets, but he's also the emissary.
Yeah.
So he's got, and the emissary getting married is like huge on Bajor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to deal with that and be emissary.
I want to know, to you,
Mm-hmm.
This is more about the series and less about the specific episode. What do you think Sisko tells us about faith? For example, when the show starts off, he doesn't know he's the emissary. He just thinks that he's this widowed dad.
Right.
Who works in Starfleet. And then he grows, and for a while he doesn't believe he's the emissary. And now he's fallen into the role. He's accepted that he plays a part of the emissary. But he doesn't really... He believes in the prophets, but sometimes he'll question them. So how do you think of Sisko in relation to faith?
Well, it kind of goes back to what happened with, well, I know it's different than From Dusk Till Dawn, right? Mm-hmm. Because Jacob was questioning his faith.
Yeah.
Now that he's got this beautiful fiance, right? Now he's engaged to Cassidy Yates. He wants to make a life with her. And now he's questioning his dead mother because she's a prophet, right?
Yep.
And saying, hey, I want to do this for me. I'm not doing this for anybody else but me because I want to be happy now. So I think he's questioning his faith now, it seems like.
Do you think that he's a good representative of what people go through?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what faith you are. Yes, I do. Think so. That he is a good example of that.
Would you call this a great episode, or at least a really good one?
Yes, I would.
Nice. I'm interested to see what you think, because I think we've got maybe 15 episodes left of DS9.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're getting down to the home stretch.
Wow. Crazy.
So I'll be honest with you. I think that the finale of Star Trek The Next Generation, all good things, even though I think Deep Space Nine is a better show, I think the finale of The Next Generation is a better finale.
Okay.
But I really like the way things end up in DS9, with
Okay.
some exceptions, which we'll get to later.
So you're satisfied with it?
For the most part.
For the most part.
For the most part. There are a few things that I have issues with.
Okay.
But I don't want to give it away too much.
Okay.
Yes. Jaylo.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to say about this episode?
No.
Okay.
I think we pretty much said what we wanted to say.
Yes. We had good tostadas last night.
Oh yeah, I had to. Yeah, we did, but something happened, and it was my mistake.
Oh yeah.
I fully acknowledge it. I will never do it again.
Okay, so at one point, Alana was cooking with the beans, and I take over. I forget why. But I say, babes, you made a huge mess, and you're like, let me clean that up right now with the boners on.
I made the mistake of doing that. I also made the mistake of not wetting the paper towels, but I usually do not clean while I'm cooking. It's just not, I usually don't do that.
Okay.
And I made a mistake of doing that last night because I thought I could. And
I just assumed that you wetted down the paper towels.
And I thought I did not. I don't know why I didn't do it. I think I was like rushing to get it done. That was not very smart on my part.
But here's where I thought you went really wrong. The paper towel is now on fire, and I say, fire, run to the sink, and you just stand there for a minute. I'm like, fire, run to the sink, and you just stand there. And then finally I'm like, run to the sink, and you go to the sink, and I'm like, turn on the water, and you're just like looking at me. And so I have to run to the sink and turn on the water.
I was in shock.
Okay.
And I did and in my defense, and it may not be a good one, but in my defense,
it's not, but go
when
ahead.
you said fire, I wasn't sure what you meant, if you meant the paper towel was on fire or if you meant there was a fire on the stove.
But I did say run to the sink.
No, you said that later.
Okay.
You didn't say it right away. And I didn't, and yeah, that was not, but I will say this, that I will never clean while cooking again, because it's just not a good idea. And with a dry paper towel at that. That was not smart on my part. I will acknowledge it. That was a mistake. It could have gone a lot worse, but thank goodness nobody was hurt, and I didn't start a huge fire. And
yeah, and the tostadas were pretty good.
The tostadas were really good, actually.
After that happened,
Mm-hmm.
we watched From Dusk Till Dawn, and then decided between that and the other sister that we were going to make our pasta salad, which I'm starting to get hungry. I think we should have some.
Yes, I think we should, and we made more than enough.
Yeah, but
yeah,
we're getting everything ready, and somebody decided to thaw out olives and not drain them.
And I thought I did. I really did think I did, but that was...
So, usually we have olives in our pasta salad, but not today, okay?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm a little bit nervous, too, to see how much sauce I added to it.
I think it's good because you added the cream cheese and everything else, and I think there's a lot of pickle in there.
Yeah. I would have liked to have some olives in there. But
I know, there's a lot of pickle in there, but
yes.
I think it'll be fine.
Overall, I'm very excited.
As am I.
Yes.
As am I.
Yes.
I think it's I would hope that it's it all melded together into a yummy salad, because I'm getting hungry now.
I am too. So let's kind of wrap this up, because I think we're now past 2 hours.
Wow, are you serious?
I think so.
Wow. We had a lot to say.
We did.
Yes.
Did you have any dreams last night?
If I did, I can't remember them, and usually I do, but I can't remember it.
I know I had dreams. I don't really remember them either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. We're getting close. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I do not have anything to say. I'm just really hungry, and
I am too. I think the last thing we should do is kiss.
Oh. Okay. All right. That's enough.
Is there anything else you wanted to say now that we kissed?
I think we discussed a lot of things, and I think it'll give our viewers some things to think about.
I do too.
Yes.
All right, Jaylo. I'm hungry. Let's go get some food.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.